This is J. Krishnamurti's second discussion with students at Brandeis University, 1968.
What is it that we are all living for? Why do we live at all? What is it all about? If you are students in this university, what does it, when you pass exams and all the rest of that, what for? What is the whole content of existence? Is it a fragmentary outlook? Fragmentary action, unrelated to the whole of existence? Or is it not fragmentary, but a comprehension of the total way of life and living and acting? One takes a course in psychology, or in physics, or in mathematics, and so on. And one has become, if one is sufficiently studious enough, a specialized entity with certain well-defined capacities. You in turn become a professor or a businessman or what you will. And is that the end of the whole picture? I hope you don't think I'm being impudent. I'm just asking. We get educated, think at least fairly arduously when we are young, and sufficiently curious to inquire deeply, and afterwards disappear into the whole mass. And we are there, caught in the vicious circle, in the trap. And fight, and struggle. And then die. What is it all about? Get married, sex. Or before marriage, sex. When you're young, the sexual experiences are almost finished. And then carry on for the rest of one's life in a routine of sexual habits and thoughts and images. And live in fragmented life. Is that the whole circus of life? I hope you don't mind my using the word circus. So, shouldn't we, if I may suggest, ask whether it is at all possible to see the totality of non-fragmentary life, the whole picture, unless one sees that I don't see taking a degree or becoming a specialist anthropologist or a scientist has very little meaning nowadays.
I think that there's no concept of a total existence in my mind, because it's impossible to love the world or the universe, because there's a complete, I don't know whether to call it a mad joy in expending energy and finding some way to both stir up energy within the self and then expend it. And this seems to be the whole joy of existence in, let's say, university life, limited to that, though probably in life altogether.
Yes, but there are two or three things which you said, and maybe we'll analyze it a little bit. You said to have a concept of the totality of life, it's impossible to love the universe, the world, and the joy of a specialized existence in a university soon disappears. Can we look into that a little bit?
Yes.
Do you think a concept, a conceptual thinking has any value at all? A concept of the communists is to have an idea, a perfect state, ruled over by a few autocrats, and everybody working for that perfect utopia, dominated by a certain ideology of Lenin, Marx, or whatever it is. And you have the same conceptual life of the Catholic, of any religious group, and what value has it? They have produced more wars, more hatred, more division in mankind. So has conceptual perception or understanding any value at all? Or must one be free from this conceptual life, the life of a formula? We live in concepts. I am this and I should be that. This should be the ideological, which is non-factual. And what is factual is what is. Why should one have a concept of a total way of existence? But if one could see how one lived in a fragmentary life, and see how this fragmentation has taken place, and from there proceed, then perhaps we may be able to see totally the whole meaning of life. But to have an intellectual concept, give a special intellectual significance to life, which clever intellectual writers and theologians do, it seems to me so utterly meaningless.
So I don't think it's the cleverness, though. I think that the individual, to himself, or perhaps even to the observer, fights an immensely courageous conflict is really meaningless, or for something that is really meaningless.
Therefore, why fight it?
I don't know, but he fights it with everything he has. It's an affirmation of human existence in a sense.
No, so wouldn't you start with the actual rather than with the formula? Here we are, a world that is so broken up, religiously, politically, racially, and all the rest of it, actually in fragments, not only within ourselves but also outside of us. Wouldn't it be worthwhile to inquire why this fragmentation has taken place and see if we cannot go beyond it? And from there, is it possible to perceive the totality of existence, not give an intellectual meaning to it? As we live, life has no meaning actually. You pass exams, take few degrees, and then get a job, and voilà, c'est tout. I mean, that's the end of it.
We're so caught up in the idea of salvation that it's almost impossible for us to think of looking at the world as a totality without trying to change it.
So if we say that it's not possible, then it's the end of it. Or if we say it is possible, then it's the end. Also, one puts oneself in a very state of, one can become create illusions. But if one says, let's find out, let's inquire, then there's a possibility of exploring, discovering. But if you say, no, it's not possible, or it is possible, then one has blocked oneself. And the question is whether one can love this whole universe, love this mankind which is so brutal, which is mankind is ourselves. To love this world and to understand that, what love is. And I don't think it's a question whether we can love the whole of mankind or the universe. That again places us rather in a difficult position. But if we say, look, what do we mean by love? Is love pleasure? Is love fear? Is love the product of thought? Can love be cultivated? Is love a matter of time? That is, time, being, memory, all the rest of it. So wouldn't it be wise, if I may suggest, that we become aware of our life as it is, actually as it is, not theoretically, not intellectually, not theorize about it, but to see actually as it is, how fragmented we are, and whether all these fragments, both in society and in ourselves, can be put together. Can fragments ever be put together? It's like those people who say we must find integration between different factors, which again is impossible. Who is the integrator? Is not the integrator himself part of the fragment? So, could we start that way, sir? Could we start why we live a fragmented life, a life so broken up? That is why there are so many contradictory desires in us. Why there is such contradiction in us. Why I am a Hindu and you're a Catholic or a Protestant or a Jew or a Muslim. Why? Why you have certain ideologies totally perhaps opposed to mine. Why do I call myself a Hindu? I don't, but why do I call myself? What importance has this terrible word? The American, the Russian, the German, the French, you follow? Why?
Perhaps because we perceive ourselves as fragments.
Vipin?
Do we not find ourselves fragmented, perhaps, because we ourselves define ourselves as fragments?
No, but the fact is that I am opposed to my wife, my neighbor. Because my neighbor is a Catholic, I'm a Protestant. So it indicates, doesn't it, that we are slaves to propaganda? No? I have been brought up as a Catholic from childhood, conditioned so heavily that I go on till I die. And I am conditioned and I hold on to that condition because I'm afraid of losing a job, of not having friends, this, dozen things, of hell and heaven, saviors and all the rest of that, yes sir.
The idea of non-fragmentation or desire seems no different than the communist desire of a perfect state. They're both meaningless because the fact is, in real terms, we have to love some people and hate others, and the times kill some people.
Obviously.
There's a time to cry and a time to laugh, and the idea is to try to find the right time for each instead of quibbling over why should we cry.
No.
It's a different, if you can see the different approach. In other words, you seem to say that in a sense, it's totally wrong for someone to say that I'm a Hindu and you're a Christian. Well, I say at times it's very necessary, and other times it isn't. We just
No, is it necessary at any time?
In a sense, the world we live in is a something world, not an all or nothing world.
No, sir, that's, you see, what makes you say it's nothing? As it is, it's nothing.
Well, I say it's a something world. It's the fact that sometimes it's a world of both opposites at times which we do different ones.
No, sir, just a minute, that's the opposite. Is there such thing as the opposite?
It's not opposite, something very different. There are differences in this world. We have to call them
So
opposites.
communism is the reaction to capitalism. You heard what the Russian scientist wrote or read. He said, we mustn't kill capitalism because we have come out of it. I mean, instead of taking capitalism or socialism, let us take ourselves as we are. Why do I have an ideal which is the opposite of what I am? Why? What I am is much more important than what I should be. I'm angry, I'm jealous, I'm envious, I'm brutal, I'm aggressive, violent. That is a fact. And to be free of that, why should I have the opposite of it? When I'm violent, why should I have the ideal of non-violence, which is so stupid? I know in India they talk a great deal of the non-violent spirit, which is sheer rubbish. They're no more non-violent than the others. So why not be aware of what we are and see if we can transform it and have more energy in the very transformation of it. And out of that comes energy, joy, and all the rest of it. But to say, well, I'll have an ideal, a conceptual way of life, and then conform to it and struggle, battle, constant effort between what is and what should be, which seems to me so utterly illogical, utterly meaningless.
Isn't that young man precisely asking for this, to be what one is, rather than to strive for being what one isn't, namely non-fragmented?
So, sir, then to find out what it is to be non-fragmented, one must be aware what fragmentation is in us. Is not, let's plunge into it, because is not all thought fragmentation? Is not the whole intellectual process a fragmentary process? Which doesn't mean emotional process is non-fragmentation. After all, by thinking, I have said I am this, opposed to what you are. I don't know if you want to go into all this deeply enough.
You asked a basic question when you said, why not find out how fragmented we are? What we see, most of us, most of me, seem to be very content with being fragmented, because I've lived for 24 years that way. So I really need an answer to that, why not?
So to find an answer to that, one has to inquire how this fragmentation has taken place. Why do we admit fragmentation? One is fragmented, but why? See, you don't answer. Is it the result of propaganda? Is it the result of the society in which we live? Which is fragmented. The scientist, the politician, the religious man, the philosopher, the poet, the artist, the writer, the actor, and so on, so on, so on. This whole structure of society is based on fragmentation, of which we are a part.
This fragmentation may be as functional as the one between Shudra
Yes, sir. Yes,
or
sir.
the other.
Yes, yes. That's the Hindu concept. I mean, function and status are two different things. We use function to achieve status. I may be a cook. And you, who are the vice president of a big corporation, look down upon me as a cook. You may tolerate me, may be very polite, friendly, but you are on top, I am below. So why has this fragmentation taken place psychologically? I understand there is fragmentation outwardly. There is the tree, there is the river, there is the sky, there is fragmentation. Man, woman, big and tall and all the rest of it. But inwardly, psychologically, why should there be any fragmentation at all?
I think it's a very easy way to deal with some necessary problems of existence that we have to deal with, biological problems.
I understand that, sir. Biologically, there's the man and the woman. Biologically, there is various forms of varieties, dissimilarities.
Well, we need, it's a biological fact that we must get food, and the way we choose to do it, an efficient way to do it is to
I understand that, sir. But I'm talking psychologically.
So to put one's attention toward, for example, getting food. It is often, I think, most efficient to break up the world into even psychological fragments, just for the ease in thinking about a fragment instead of the whole.
I mean, that's what the animals have done, the territorial rights and sexual rights.
Right, well, we're not that different, I don't think.
I don't think we are. The territorial rights of the India, politically, religiously, you follow? The vested interest of the group there, of the community there, and the vested interest and the group and the community in this country, and so on.
Well, this may answer why we...
Wait, that's only a very partial answer. That is how man has divided the world according to his territorial rights. To get more food. Perhaps that may be totally wrong now. It may be that there must be only one world unity. Wait, sir, don't deny it, don't brush it up, because whole of India is starving, practically. In India, there are 550 million people, 12 million people on the increase every year. And they have not enough food. And they say, no, let's have territorial rights. Don't let anybody interfere with us. Which is absurd.
Well, if this is an instinctual concept which we have and the animals have, then we're doing intellectualization by saying that we must overcome this and overcome this basic innate territorialization need, and say that to make the world one. The world isn't one in a biological sense.
No, but intelligence demands that we be one. You grow whole of the world, you're growing grain for practically whole of the world now, if I may put it so, and you're supplying. So why not divide the world? You see, that's fairly simple, because we are not using our intelligence. We are still going on the instinctual rights of territory and sexual rights, which is a biological state which animals admit. Why should we, with our intelligence, admit that?
We're not intelligent.
That is the point.
What's the difference between the openness of a child and his innocence, who's without fear, and the state that you're referring to?
I said that No, if you don't mind, let's finish this thing. As it has been pointed out, one of the causes of fragmentation is the biological instinct, which has become the rights of property, and so on. What are the other factors of this breaking up of a human being?
This might be another small shred, but man was faced with his total aloneness as a being. And he was not at that point, although he may have been able to conceive of himself as full with everything else. So why there was the subsequent fragmentation in his psychological mind, that definition again being a symptom of fragmentation, is once you fragment roles among everybody else and also roles of self relative to nature, there's then a functional, and it's merely almost functional, dependence and interrelationship between everything, thus giving it a meaning. So you really couldn't make sense out of this experience of total aloneness once he was aware at all. And very first awarenesses tend to be very dangerous. And when there was no homogeneity between that aloneness and like the fullness of the world and others, delineation of roles and opposites and functions became like the artificial structure for meaning.
This more or less what he's saying. Is more or less what he's saying. A biological thing which has become so on and so on. But is that all? Is not this fragmentation much more deep than that?
A lack of reason.
No. Now wait a minute, sir. How would you find out? I mean, you supply one argument, one reason, and I supply another, he'll supply another, 10 of us. Will these 10 explanations satisfy us? We'll say, well, I've now gathered 10 explanations, or dozen, or whatever it is, and now I've understood why I'm fragmented. I'm no longer fragmented. Will that help? The searching of the cause of the fragmentations, each according to his temperament, knowledge, all the rest of it. And we have collected all in a basket, as it were. And I've listened to it, and I say, am I at the end of this explanation and description free of the fragmentation?
May I ask, why do you want to be free of the fragmentation?
If one is not free of fragmentation, one is in constant battle with a neighbor. You'll kill me when it suits you, and I'll kill you when it suits me. If you accept that as the norm, as the way of life, it's all right.
Well, that seems to be the way that...
But I don't want to live that way. That's a monstrous, murderous way. Even the species don't kill each other. In the species. Now we are killing each other. We are leading the most hideous, brutal life. Why should I? You may say, well, that's the inevitability of our instinct, animal, this, that, 10 different explanations, and you prefer that way, so carry on. But I see that to me, I mean, any intelligent man, I'm not saying you're not intelligent, sir, but any intelligent man, this is the most absurd way of living. You're spending, I don't know, God knows how many millions on armament, and Russia is, because of this fragmentation.
That's fear.
No, wait, sir. That is, inevitably will come to that, you see.
Now that I have
No, madam, it isn't a question of different things, learning different at different periods of one's life. If one wants to live intelligently, non-brutally, non-violently, if one wants to live in peace, which is absolutely necessary to, after all, if we are not at peace here, we'll be killing each other. Even to assemble in this room must be at least peaceful. To live at peace in the world, there must be non-fragmentation. And if you know, life is not meant to be peaceful. One must kill, one must brutalize, one must be violent. That's all right too, if one wants to live that way.
Can you have action without this action and growth and evolution without this now?
Without?
Without this struggle, without
Oh,
this conflict?
my Lord. Does evolution consist in killing each other? What fanciful way of... That's what the communists have maintained. Thesis, antithesis, and the synthesis. And they keep on going in this circle, getting higher and higher if they can, which they can't. So why should I, a human being, seeing all this happening around me, divided, the Russian, the American, the Hindu, the Buddhist, the Muslim, the Christian, the Catholic, divided, broken up. I said, these people hate each other fundamentally. And they have prepared, their whole way of life is the way of war. Why should I join it? To me, that's the most absurd way of living. Therefore, I say, why, if I want to be really at peace with myself, with my neighbor, with the world, I want to find out why I live a fragmentary life. Not give explanations, yours, mine, his. That won't solve it. So I say, I am part of this humanity. I am a human being who has created this corrupt society. And this corruption has come because of me. So, and this inevitability or the inevitable acceptance of war as a way of life, I see where it leads to. Man hasn't changed for 5,000 years because he's had 15,000 wars. And it's about time we say, look, for God's sake, let's look at it all anew and not carry on the same old pattern. So why am I fragmented? Don't give me explanations because we're beyond all that. You don't explain to a hungry man, food, there's a marvelous food next door, he wants it. We at least if you are at all serious about it, we are in that state. I want to know why I live a fragmentary life. Basically, I'm frightened. Which is what we discussed the other day. Both physically, psychologically, in every way we're frightened human beings. Out of fear, I've created the gods, the saviors, the gurus, all the rest of it. Out of fear for security, I've created nationalities, the territorial rights, which now prevent security, war. which is brought about by ideological security. I believe in communism and you believe in Catholicism. And so we are war at each other. But this also obviously
to be non-fragmented in this society, doesn't that pose a threat to the structure as it exists? And if that's the case, then aren't you fragmenting yourself again by...
No, sir. I want, please, let's understand this. The society in which I live is part of me. I have created this society. Every human being living has created this society, the culture in which he lives, which is obvious. I am greedy, envious, aggressive, seeking position, power, and I create a society, a structure that will give me what I want, which is what is taking place. And so I am part of this fragment.
But wouldn't you be viewed by people who are living in a world of fragments as a threat to their society, as a threat to their way of life? And in that case, although you wouldn't be viewing things in a fragmented way, you would be viewed as a fragment, as a threat. And in that case, another conflict would develop between...
And no, not between me and society, because I want to be out of society. Psychologically, I may put on its trousers, my shirt, and do all that, but inwardly, psychologically, I don't belong to it. Why should I?
Instead of thinking about fragmentation, wouldn't it be better for us to, in our own lives, in our everyday lives, to start withdrawing from society and say, like withdrawing from institutions that we're a part
That's
of?
what so.
Then come to face ourselves.
That's what we're doing. One must be an outsider. To Hinduism, to all the rest of the world, an outsider. To be an outsider, you must know that to be an outsider is not a reaction, it's not just a revolt from what it. So you have to understand what it means to be an outsider, which means non-acquisitive, non-aggressive, non-violent, and so on, so on, so on. And all that is the result of my fear. Fear of being and not becoming. So, can I be free from fear? Then I shan't be in fragments. And this is an immense question. It isn't just a plaything of few students. This is the whole of life. Because we have invented nationalities, we have invented war, we have invented the difference between the high and the low, the man who's got a better job, and so on and on and on, because I myself want to be in a better position. Psychologically, it satisfies me to be somebody. So can I, as a human being living in this world, not withdrawing to some monastery, living in this world, be free of this contagion of fear, which makes everything into fragments?
I find that when I inquire, why am I fragmented, I generate a kind of fragmentation. There's a separation between the part that's saying why and the rest of it. So I
Yes, sir,
create
that's
more.
right. I'm saying that. Through analysis, as we said the other day, perhaps you are not here, through analysis, fragmentation will continue.
How can I escape analysis?
And I'm saying there is a fundamental fact that human beings are frightened. To live, to die. Because living as it is a battlefield. So I'm frightened of living and frightened of dying. And in this living, I say I love somebody, which is absurd. I don't love anybody. I want to possess them, dominate them, depend on them, they give me pleasure, and so on, which is not love. So, there is a center in each one of us, which is the cause of fragmentation. Call it the ego, the Atman in Sanskrit, the soul, whatever word you may use, there is this center that is the cause of fragmentation. This center is the whole structure of thought, the memory, the experience, that is the center. And from there, the fragmentation takes place. So, I don't know if you want to go into all this. So the question is, can the mind, do follow it, sir, the mind, which is the reservoir of memory, past experience, knowledge, mind being both the brain included, can that come to an end so that we are a new human beings, not the same old repetitive second-hand human beings? So that we have an innocent mind. You follow, sir?
So I have to dissolve my mind.
Huh?
I have to dissolve my mind. I have to break it down.
Therefore, that's the problem. Now we come to it. At last. Therefore, the question is, what is the element that will dissolve the past? You follow? What will wipe away, or what energy is necessary to wipe away the past? I can't wipe away, the mind can't wipe away the accumulated scientific knowledge, which would be absurd. The technique that has been developed through centuries. But the psychological memories which separate me from others, me opposed to you, which is the past. Can that be resolved, dissolved? Right, sir? Now, if you are willing to go into it, we'll see.
I find that I can't dissolve it by effort.
No, obviously not. Effort means duality.
The barrier is there.
Basically duality. I am this, I want to be that. Therefore, the that is an artificial, ideological, conceptual state.
Exactly.
So I don't want to think in those terms.
So now I have to surrender.
And wait, sir, wait. Don't be little patient. There is the center, we'll call it for the moment, which is the past, of which the mind is made up of, as well as the brain. So we say, how can this past be dissolved? Without effort, without creating its opposite, which means no effort. You follow, sir? So I have faced with a problem, which is, who is the entity that's going to dissolve it? Right? So, religious people have said divine grace. Or in Hinduism, they put it differently, in Buddhism different, so on, so on. It is all dependent on external force.
But the minute I begin thinking about divine grace, I have some ideas.
That's why I reject all that. One must reject all
Yeah,
that.
and there the problem is again.
Again.
Yeah.
Good. So one rejects all that. So one is left with this question. There is the past and it must be resolved. And who is the entity that will resolve it? If the entity is separate from the past, right? Then he can resolve it. But is the entity not part of the past? Who says I must dissolve it? I don't know if you're following all this.
Well, that's my trap.
That is the trap. So I say, is the entity different from the past? Who says I must dissolve it? It is not. So there is only the past.
You're saying that you have this awareness, and the guy who's looking, and what he's looking at become one and the same.
That's right, that's right. Right, sir? So we said the observer who says he must get rid of the past, the observer himself is the past. Of course. Right?
Right. So I can say I'm here.
No, don't say anything yet. Don't. This is the most delicate thing. You can't just say I'm here, or just go at it slowly. So the observer is the observed. The censor is the censored. Right? Now, which means what takes place? Do go into little cells, slow, very slowly. What takes place? Before, there was the censor saying I must get rid of this or that, right? And the censor now is the thing that is denied. So what happens to the mind?
Kind of a fresh perception.
Wait, you're too quick, you're not. Go slowly, sir. The mind so far has made an effort to get rid of or resist. Right? And now there is neither resistance nor wiping off. So the mind doesn't act at all at the moment. Right? Says this is so. Any movement that is born out of me is a fragmentation, is a movement of fragmentation, right? Therefore the mind is completely quiet. And this quietness is non-fragmentation. And can one act from this quietness? You follow? And therefore non-fragmentary. Every action from this quietness is non-fragmentary. I don't know if you've gone it so. So look, all this, what we have just now discussed for the last hour, needs highest form of discipline. That is, discipline means, the root of that word is to learn. Not to conform, not to suppress, not to obey, not to be drilled. It means to learn. And we have learned. And the very learning demands its own discipline. Therefore, the mind becomes highly disciplined without any conformity. Therefore, such a mind is highly austere. Austerity is not the harshness of the priest or the saint.
It's very difficult to act without the memory of a
So, watch it, that's it. Therefore, I act when necessary in the technological field, but is there action without memory? Is there action without the concept? Obviously there is.
only if I watch.
And that's only when you are really aware. Only when you are aware without any choice. In that there is tremendous energy. Because our energy is dissipated through fragmentation and conflict. When you have no conflict, no resistance, no fragmentation, you are highly sensitive, highly disciplined. And therefore there is abundance of energy. This is all this an hour has been an act of meditation. You follow? This is real meditation, not the phony stuff of repeating words and going off into all kinds of fantastical visions and so on. But when you know how, when from this you can proceed, which means one must lay the foundation of behavior, righteousness and all that, austerity. Then when the mind is quiet, then there is no limit. Vimera.
Said that action after one has achieved the state of mind of austerity doesn't require conception or preconception. I don't quite understand how that's possible. It seems that most action is based on some past.
I'll show it to you in a minute. Just a minute, watch it. When you say you love somebody, is that love based on memory? Is love memory, which is thought? If love is the result of thought, which means pleasure, Is love pleasure? Biologically, the sexual act may give you pleasure. And you say, I love. That pleasure which you have had is a memory. And is love something in the past?
There is the I and the you.
That's just
And
it.
that idea
Oh,
of
all the
separation,
fragmentation, all that business.
which is the opposite of love.
Therefore, when you say, can you not, we cannot act without conceptual, without concept, which means you're acting without love. And that's what we're doing. Each one out for himself, though he's married, has children and all the rest of it. Each one lives in his own cocoon and has relationships sexually and family and so on. Say that's what we call love. With its jealousy, anxiety, fear, with its nagging, domination, possession. All that is not obviously love. So, it is so obvious, isn't it? I mean, after all, we love and we hate. Jealousy is a form of hate, fear. And our love is based on this fear and jealousy. Therefore, it is not love. On this word, we thrive. The politician thrives on that word love, and the husband and the wife thrive on it, and so on. But which has no meaning anymore. I don't know if you're. So can the mind be purged of the past and know what love is? Can the mind be free of all? Can the mind be free of all experience, which is the past, and therefore be innocent? It's only the innocent mind that can love. Not the mind that has 1,000 images.
Would you consider a child's mind innocent and that child's love is innocent?
Beg your pardon?
Would you consider a child's love that kind of innocent love?
No, don't bring in the children, please.
Then it's not.
The child, when he says I love his mother, they depend on her for food, dozen things after all. We are not children. We must take what we are and start from there, not bring in the child. That means if we change ourselves, we'll bring about a change in society, in education. It won't be this monstrous education, getting a few degrees, learning something by heart and passing an exam and a job, and there's the end of it. I think we better stop, don't you? Huh? Because I have to talk again this afternoon, sir. We'll go on there where we left off and go on.